When law enforcement officers were drawn to a decrepit trailer by the sounds of barking and whining, they encountered a scene of profound neglect. The trailer's walls were coated with a thick layer of dust and grime, as if it had been abandoned for years. The curtains, once vibrant, had faded to a dingy yellow, stained and brittle with age. Paint peeled away from the metal exterior, exposing the rusty framework beneath, giving the trailer an eerie, forgotten look as officers approached. The rancid stench seeping from inside made them recoil, a foul mix of urine, feces, and decay. They announced their presence, shouting, "Police, open up," but the continuous barking drowned out any response. With no other choice, the officers forced the metal door open, its hinges groaning in protest. The door clanged as it hit the wall, releasing an even stronger wave of the unbearable odor, so foul that some officers gagged. They fanned out cautiously, stepping into the suffocating darkness of the trailer's cramped interior. Trash and debris littered the floor, and every surface was sticky with grease and grime. The dim lighting only amplified the squalor. Cigarette butts were scattered across a sagging couch, and broken furniture leaned precariously in corners. As the officers advanced, flashlights cutting through the gloom, they finally discovered the source of the stench. Two filthy dogs locked in small wire cages and a third pacing erratically, growling at the intrusion. The caged dogs whimpered softly, their matted fur caked with filth, their ribs visible through their thin, frail bodies. One dog had open sores on its skin, and the other's nose was cracked and bleeding, a testament to prolonged dehydration. The officers radioed for animal control to assist, knowing the animals needed immediate care. Meanwhile, the free-roaming dog, a large pit mix, barked aggressively, forcing the officers to move cautiously to avoid provoking an attack. While securing the dogs, the deputies heard muffled noises deeper inside the trailer, soft rustling and faint whispers. With weapons drawn, they made their way to a dimly lit back room. What they found was heartbreaking. Curled up in a corner on a stained mattress were two small children, a toddler and an infant. The older child, a 3-year-old girl, stared at the officers with wide, fearful eyes. She was barefoot, wearing nothing but a sagging, soiled diaper that hadn't been changed in days. Next to her, her baby sister lay still, her tiny body wrapped in a filthy blanket, skin pale and cheeks sunken from malnourishment. The room reeked of human waste, and flies buzzed in lazy circles around the children. The officers knelt to check on the girls, speaking to them softly to avoid scaring them further. One officer asked, "Are you okay, sweetheart? Where's your mommy?" But the toddler only shook her head, too scared or exhausted to answer. The infant stirred weakly, letting out a faint whimper, but it was clear that both children were dangerously neglected. The search of the trailer revealed more grim details. In the refrigerator, there was no food, only moldy containers filled with sludge. A lone milk carton sat on the counter, its contents curdled and spoiled. The officers also discovered a handgun lying on a coffee table. To their horror, the toddler reached for the weapon, waving it around innocently. One officer reacted instantly, disarming the child with a firm but gentle grip. Thankfully, the gun wasn't loaded, but the officers couldn't imagine what could have happened if it had been. As the officers cleared the scene, they called in social services and paramedics to assess the children's condition. The little girls were visibly dehydrated and malnourished, their frail limbs and gaunt faces a stark reminder of the neglect they had endured. One paramedic wrapped the infant in a clean blanket, gently lifting her onto a stretcher, while the older child clung to another officer's leg, too scared to let go. Back at the dispatch center, Mary, the 911 operator who had taken the call, sat anxiously at her desk, waiting for updates. She had never imagined that a simple call from a child could lead to such a tragic scene, yet her instincts had been right. Something was deeply wrong. Mary's quick thinking and persistence had saved the children from what could have been an even worse fate. The deputies didn't have to search long for the girl's mother. A neighbor tipped them off, revealing that the mother, 26-year-old Yara Tarito, had left the trailer hours ago and was seen at a nearby diner. Officers located her sitting at the counter, casually sipping coffee and scrolling through her phone. When they confronted her, she feigned surprise, insisting she had only stepped out for a quick minute. At the diner, the officers pressed her for answers, but Tarito was indifferent. brushing off concerns about the condition of her children. "They were asleep," she said nonchalantly, "and I had to run a few errands," but the officers knew better. The evidence inside the trailer painted a different picture. She was arrested on the spot for child neglect, handcuffed, and escorted to the patrol car. Her bail was set at $5,000, which she later posted through a bondsman, but the damage was done. The children were immediately placed in protective custody by the Department of Children and Families, beginning a long process to determine if their mother could ever be deemed fit to care for them again. Social workers noted that both girls would need medical evaluations, therapy, and foster placement while the investigation unfolded. Back at the trailer, animal control officers were still working to remove the dogs, each in varying stages of malnutrition and illness. The caged animals were carefully lifted onto transport vehicles, destined for the shelter, where they would receive the medical attention they desperately needed. The aggressive pit mix, too, would be taken in, though its fate remained uncertain given its condition and temperament. In the following days, Mary learned that both children were recovering in the hospital and were receiving the care they needed. Although shaken by the experience, she felt a sense of relief knowing she had played a part in saving their lives. The outcome could have been far worse if not for her persistence and quick response. The officers conducted a thorough sweep of the trailer home, making additional disturbing discoveries. Piles of soiled clothing and trash were scattered across the floor, the air thick with the stench of spoiled food. The bathroom, which appeared unusable, was clogged with dirty diapers and murky water. Faint paw prints covered the walls and furniture, indicating the dogs had been left to roam freely. Empty cans of pet food littered the kitchen, suggesting that even the dogs were barely surviving on scraps. A broken baby bottle with dried formula rested on the countertop, hinting at the chaos and neglect permeating the children's lives. One of the most alarming moments occurred when the officers spotted the toddler holding the pistol. The 2-year-old waved the firearm with the carefree demeanor of a child playing with a toy, momentarily pointing it at the officers with a giggle that belied the gravity of the situation. Though the gun was quickly found to be unloaded, the harrowing scene emphasized the extreme danger the children faced. The officers moved swiftly, one of them speaking in a calming voice to distract the toddler while another carefully approached from behind to retrieve the weapon. With the firearm secured, they let out a collective sigh of relief, knowing that tragedy had narrowly been averted. The Department of Children and Families was immediately contacted, and the officers ensured the children were safely removed from the hazardous environment. The siblings clung to each other in confusion as they were gently placed into the care of social workers. Both children appeared to be severely malnourished, their ribs visible through their thin frames. Their skin was pale, and dark circles under their eyes hinted at chronic exhaustion and neglect. They wore diapers that hadn't been changed for what seemed like days, causing skin rashes that required medical attention. One of the social workers softly reassured them, holding the younger child close while her colleague wrapped the older sibling in a warm blanket. The search for their mother, 26-year-old Yara Tarito, spanned 2 grueling hours, during which deputies canvassed the neighborhood, questioning residents and checking nearby establishments. Each moment felt critical, as leaving the children unsupervised for an extended period could escalate the risk of injury or worse. When deputies finally located Yara at a small coffee shop on the edge of town, she appeared relaxed, laughing and chatting with a friend over lattes, seemingly unaware of the unfolding crisis. Her calm demeanor was strikingly out of place, given the chaos at her home. The officers approached her cautiously, initially hoping for a reasonable explanation. When questioned, Yara insisted she had only stepped out for a few minutes while her children were napping. However, a neighbor contradicted her claims, reporting she had left around 7:30 a.m., several hours before authorities arrived. Confronted with the inconsistency, Yara shrugged and dismissed the officers' concerns, further aggravating the situation. Her nonchalant attitude indicated either a complete lack of awareness or an alarming disregard for her responsibilities as a mother. Meanwhile, animal control officers arrived back at the trailer to address the situation with the dogs. 2 of the animals, caged in rusted kennels, were visibly traumatized. Their ribs protruded under matted coats, and they trembled at the sight of humans, suggesting they had been confined for long periods without proper care or food. One of the dogs had developed pressure sores from being forced to lie on the metal bars of the cage floor for extended periods. The third dog, loose but clearly distressed, paced nervously around the officers. It let out low growls, its eyes wild with fear and mistrust. After several minutes of gentle coaxing and offering treats, the officers managed to leash the animal and transport all three to a shelter. There, the dogs would finally receive the medical care, nutrition, and attention they desperately needed, with a glimmer of hope that they might find new, loving homes. Yara's arrest soon followed, despite her loud protests. As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, she stared at the officers in disbelief. As if unable to comprehend the gravity of her situation. "This is ridiculous," she shouted, trying to wriggle free. "I didn't do anything wrong, they were just fine." Her protests, however, carried no weight. The officers escorted her to the patrol car, where she sat in stunned silence. Her claims of innocence failed to sway the authorities, who viewed her actions as a clear case of child neglect. She was charged with 2 counts of child endangerment and neglect. The court set her bail at $5,000, which Yara managed to post with the assistance of a bail bondsman. When she returned to her empty trailer, the eerie silence was a stark reminder of the consequences of her choices. The absence of her children and the dogs left a void, and reality began to sink in. Community reaction to the incident was swift and unforgiving. News of Yara's reckless behavior spread rapidly, igniting outrage. Parents in the neighborhood were particularly vocal, appalled by the idea that she had left her young children in such unsafe conditions for hours. "How could she be so careless?" one neighbor remarked, shaking her head in disbelief. Others took to social media, condemning her actions and demanding accountability. The general sentiment was that Yara's behavior had crossed a line that could not be easily forgiven. The children, now in protective custody, were placed with foster families while social workers evaluated Yara's capacity as a parent. During the initial assessments, caseworkers observed that the 2 siblings clung to each other tightly, a heartbreaking display of the emotional toll the neglect had taken on them. They rarely smiled and seemed fearful of adults, behaviors that would require ongoing therapy and support to overcome. Caseworkers were particularly concerned about the toddler's ability to form healthy relationships in the future, given the trauma she had endured. They noted that it might take months, if not years, for the children to fully recover and feel safe again. Social services initiated an extensive investigation into Yara's background. They discovered a troubling history of unstable living conditions and intermittent employment, raising additional concerns about her ability to provide a safe environment for her children. Yara was assigned to parenting classes and therapy sessions as part of the court's mandate, with officials making it clear that regaining custody would not be guaranteed. The state needed to be confident that Yara had made meaningful changes before they could consider reuniting her with her children. The role of Mary, the 911 operator, cannot be overstated. Her ability to remain composed under extreme pressure exemplified the importance of calm, decisive action in emergencies. During the 8-minute call, Mary skillfully guided the toddler, asking simple questions and encouraging her to describe what she saw. Mary's soothing voice helped keep the child calm and engaged, even when the situation threatened to spiral out of control. Behind the scenes, Mary worked with dispatchers, ensuring that officers were provided with the most accurate information possible. Her quick thinking ensured the children were found before the situation could escalate further. When the call abruptly disconnected, Mary took immediate action. She coordinated with law enforcement to trace the location and keep the units en route. Knowing time was of the essence, Mary's efforts not only safeguarded the children but also ensured the welfare of the neglected animals. Without her composure and expertise, the incident could have ended in tragedy. Her performance exemplified the often unseen heroism of emergency responders who operate behind the scenes, ensuring public safety with little recognition or fanfare. The situation, while tragic, serves as a sobering reminder that neglect can happen in any community. It underscores the importance of vigilance and swift action when the safety of children is at risk. The coordinated efforts of law enforcement, animal control, and social services were essential in addressing the immediate crisis and setting the children on a path toward recovery. Their collaborative work ensured that both the children and animals were removed from harm's way and given a chance at a better future. Mary's role in preventing a potential disaster was pivotal, and her actions merit recognition. Her ability to remain calm under pressure not only saved 2 young lives but also protected 3 vulnerable animals. This incident is a testament to the importance of experienced emergency personnel who are prepared to act decisively in moments of crisis. While the future remains uncertain for Yara and her children, one thing is clear: without the efforts of Mary and the first responders, the outcome could have been far worse. Thanks to their quick response and dedication, the children now have a chance to heal, and the animals have a shot at finding loving homes. Do you have any thoughts after watching the above video? Tell us in the comments section. We'd like to hear your thoughts. That's for today's story, and if you liked the video, please subscribe and give a thumbs up. See you next time.